Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us on this inaugural podcast. You had a lot of faith in knowing this is going to be a great thing. You're here for the very, very first one. I really appreciate it. Maybe you really are here for the very first one. Maybe you have listened to 5 or 6 other ones and now you're starting from the beginning. Anyway, you're doing it. I really appreciate it. Let me just get right into what this podcast is going to be. I want to interview people with a story. I want to have a nice, relaxed interview. I don't want any kind of contention. This whole podcast is called Not in a Huff because no one's going to be mad. I want it to be friendly interviews to hear people's backstory. So whether they're in the arts, up on stage, whether they're comedians, whether they're musicians, whether they're actors, whether they're travelers, whether they're someone who was in the news for, a select amount of time 5 years ago, and we're all wondering, man, they captured national attention back then. Where are they at now? I'd love to interview those people as well. News people, maybe people who make the news, whether they're newscasters, whether they're journalists, people with a backstory. I want to hear exactly how people got to the place that they're at. So we're going to cover a lot of different areas. 1 week, maybe we're talking to somebody that doesn't interest you. I do hope that you'll still listen in because I'm not going to make this too niche. I want to just mainly focus on people's story. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about their passion, whatever that passion may be. But I think every episode is going to really cover something for everyone. Without further ado, I really don't want to talk a bunch myself. This is not going to be a solo podcast. It's going to be a lot about the guest. So with that said, let's just get right started. The first person is going to be a traveler. I am really into traveling. Oh goodness, I've been to 15 countries in the last 4 years. So we will talk to travelers. I would say if anything is going to be more prevalent, it may be them, but it's not going to be just a travel podcast. I assure you of that. The first person, though, for today, our inaugural podcast, is going to be Matt Javit. Matt lives right here in my hometown. He's got a podcast as well. We'll cover that. We'll talk a lot about that. But the really cool thing about him is he came from the corporate world. He stepped right out of corporate America, put his backpack on, left with his wife, and traveled the world for 2 years. He also has a show currently on Amazon called Barbershop Adventures, where he goes all around the world getting his hair cut at different barbershops. Really interesting. So without further ado, let me just pass it over and let's go into my interview with Matt. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. So if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to, I guess, leave corporate America and start this journey traveling.
Absolutely. I guess the cool thing about what people like to hear about my story is my wife and I took a unique opportunity after working in corporate America from my side, 9 years in an international company in technology. And we decided to pause our careers and travel full time for 27 months to 35 countries. And leading up to that process, it wasn't necessarily a thing where we were trying to get out of corporate America or get out of our jobs, because we enjoyed what we were doing at home. We loved our lives. We loved hanging out with our family and our friends and our network. But it was more of a chasing of a dream and running towards something. And in this case, it was the love of travel, it was the love of culture. It was the chance to experience new people and places around the world and just dive head into that experience and really take it all in and live amongst the people within the cities and towns that we travel to and really try to learn lessons that we could take into our next chapter of life. Yeah,
I think a lot of people kind of would be envious of that. What would what would you tell people that want to make kind of that jump? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting in offices. I know there's not everyone could take that much time off. What advice do you have for people who want to, whether it's take a month or 2 months? What kind of advice do you have for people who want to take a little bit more of just, their week-long vacation?
Yeah, I think for us, it's more of a mindset and a lifestyle that we look at. So Nikki and I, we both have had success with our careers, but we don't really put value in a lot of things. We put more value in experiences. So we haven't spent a lot of money on some of the things that other people might spend on when it comes to multiple cars or a bigger home or things like that, extravagant things around your household, where we would rather spend our money doing something like what we did. And that's when people, when we decided to do what we did, people were kind of taken aback on the idea that we could actually afford to do something like that. Because we had to pay our way through, Nikki's got her doctorate, so pay down that debt and the other debts in our life. But I think that if you make a conscious decision to really scale back other aspects of your life and you don't overspend on things that you don't necessarily need, that you'll find that you have extra money to allocate towards things like travel. And travel doesn't necessarily have to be super expensive. Yes, what we did it wasn't cheap to be away for that long. But when you talk about the cost of living compared to the cost of living in other parts of the world, there are places in the world where we can get by very far, especially when you're talking about like Southeast Asia and how cheap and how far the dollar goes. There's ways that you can do it if you do it in a very thoughtful way, and you don't stay in nice resorts, and you're not afraid to be a little bit uncomfortable on some of your travel. So it's one of those things where it's kind of a balance. I am the type of mindset that I think that you have to figure out ways to make more money. I'm all about that as far as like hustling. I've always had pretty much full commission jobs. I've always found ways to outwork the competition to make more money so I can afford things. But then once I do make the money, I don't waste it on things like physical things. I'd rather spend it on experiences. And that's, Nikki and I both have that mindset, and we're married 15 years now, and that's allowed us to do certain things like that.
No, that's awesome. So where did you mostly travel? I watched many of your YouTube videos. It does look like you did kind of focus in Southeast Asia, where it is a lot more cost effective. Is that where a lot of your traveling was? I know it was 35 countries in what did you say?
27 months, 35 countries. But I think that to be honest with you, we didn't really start recording as much until the second half of our journey, and that was Southeast Asia. So we started out in South America. We did 3.5 months in South America, focused on the West Coast, from Chile up to Ecuador, and the Galapagos Islands was along with that, and Machu Picchu, and a beautiful area called San Pedro de Atacama. That's Nikki's favorite place, San Pedro de Atacama, Chile. It is gorgeous. If you ever just look up the Google images for San Pedro, it's tremendous. And then we spent both summers in Europe, so 8 months total in Europe, and that was, we did some southern countries in the first part, and then we went to kind of central, and then also Ireland on the second trip, and also Estonia and Poland, and then 3 months total in South Africa.
Oh wow!
About 2.5 months total in India. We were in 3 Indian weddings, and we went to some amazing places, stayed with a lot of friends of friends there, and really had a chance to take in the culture. And then 6 months total in Southeast Asia, and 6 weeks in Japan. And then we ended with a month in Australia, 10 days in Fiji, and 3 weeks in New Zealand before we came home.
See, I think that's a good mix, because I know a lot in my travels. I mean, I've been to Central America, but a lot of it has been focused in Europe, and that definitely would break the bank if you spent your whole time there. That's for sure. Yeah,
that was there in Japan really hit us, and then also Australia and New Zealand can be expensive, but we were lucky to be able to stay with some friends in Australia And we did New Zealand probably as cheap as we could because that was the end of our trip and the funds were getting low. But then you get countries like Bali, not Bali, but the city of Bali in Indonesia, but Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. Your dollar really goes a long way. And in India, and everything's pretty cheap in India as well, especially because we were staying with families and stuff. But yeah, definitely Europe hit us pretty hard. And but we did some. I guess we were kind of smart and something. There was peaks and valleys in our Europe trip. And then some countries like Poland's pretty cheap as well, compared to America, and it's definitely worth the visit. We love Poland.
Absolutely. Yeah. So exactly how much did you up it? Were you staying in hostels? I know you mentioned that you stayed with families, which is always great just to, gain that extra cultural experience. You don't go back to the hotel, back to your comfortable life. You're kind of completely immersed the whole time. So I always think that's a really, really good idea. But what if when there wasn't families, were you staying in hotels? Were you staying in hostels?
And that was the idea, is that immersion and kind of getting getting out of that comfort zone. And that was the whole idea of going that long as well. Because we knew that if we traveled for a shorter period of time, that just that finish line, knowing that you were going home would take some of that comfort out. And that sounded like we were trying to do, we were just kind of trying to rough it and be super uncomfortable, but we just knew that we were on a budget. So yeah, we had some hostels, not a ton, because we are a little bit older, and some of the hostels we went to, it seemed very, it was much more of a younger crowd. But then we did have some chances where we went to some hostels where there was a mixed group of people, and that was fun. We did a thing called Workaway. If you go to workaway.info, it's a website where you can exchange your skills for a place to stay, and sometimes they give you some food. Yeah, so we did a month on a Greek island where we basically changed beds, cleaned bathrooms, greeted guests on this little 10 space. It was kind of a bed and breakfast where Nikki and I were the workers for that month. But and then we had to put in some serious work between 6 and 8 hours a day in August, which is a busy month in Europe. But we did that for a free place to stay and some food on a Greek island, which was a very memorable and awesome experience. We did a month, same website, Workaway, a month at a surf lodge in Victoria Bay, South Africa, which was really cool because we gave us a free bunk to stay in and access to an awesome beach, and also some other great travelers that were also working there. And that's another cool thing about some of those websites, is you get to interact with other people. And then we had a couple more workaways. We did one in Ecuador and a Guayaquil, Ecuador, and one in Chile. But then we also did a website called Trusted House Sitters, where we watched a couple of cats in Zurich, Switzerland. Zurich is extremely expensive to travel to, but we stayed in this awesome 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. We just watched these 2 cats for 3 weeks and had full access to the guy's house where they went on their vacation, and we watched their cats for free. So that was awesome. And then we did the same thing in Singapore. So we did creative things like that to keep our costs down. And then situations like that gets you really immersed with the culture, because you have a host there that's there with you and shows you around, or at least introduces you to certain people. And then from there, like once you like get in these towns, you get to know people. That's when the cool stuff happens. That's when you get to go to the restaurant that's not all over TripAdvisor. You get to meet locals and have conversations. And I use websites like meetup.com, Meetup's website that kind of brings same thought people together. And I used it to like smoke cigars in Zurich, talk technology to these guys in Alicante, Spain, talk to entrepreneurs in Osaka, Japan. So there's a lot of ways now that you can leverage the social networking tools and just the different platforms out there to meet people. So you're just not sitting in a resort looking out at a gorgeous beach and hanging out on a coastline that could be any coastline in the world, that you're actually talking to the people that are in these places. Because for us, that's what true travel is when you're in these places, you get to talk to the people, you get to understand how they live day to day. And then you bring those little experiences back to your home life. And those are the things that can really change you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you there. I hate just doing the same thing that, thousands of tourists did the very day before you and are going to do the next day. So I think it's huge to be able to interact with with the locals, you're definitely going to find even way better food than what the websites or what the travel books tell you. So I think that's awesome. I really do. You mentioned obviously you have a big sales background. How much do you think that benefited you in your travels, whether it's negotiating things or whether it's just the interpersonal skills that sales teaches you?
Yeah, thank you. I think it went a long way from, like you said, that's what's funny about America is we don't negotiate here for anything. Like if you see a price, you pay it. Where basically everywhere else around the world, you see a price and that's the starting point of a conversation. And so that helped a lot. And it was just fun to have those interactions with people. And there was times where I can remember we were in Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, Vietnam. And we'd spent a lot of time in this one marketplace. And I befriended a couple of guys that were selling suits. So I had been out of the mix for about probably over a year at that point. So I asked them if I could just greet people and help them sell. Wow. I did that with them for a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. And then we also, at one point, we were in Lisbon, Portugal during one of their biggest festival months. Uh-huh. And I sold Jello shots off our balcony as part of the festivities, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, so I think the best thing it allowed me to do is because I've been lucky enough in my sales career to have a chance to sell to the C-levels that are making $1 million a year, but I've also befriended everybody down to the administrative executive or the janitor in the corporations. And I don't care who you are. I mean, we're all the same. And that was sure. the same thing that resonated around the world is humans are all basically the same. We're all looking to achieve similar goals. We just happen to be on different soil around the world. And so just understanding people a little better. I mean, those 3 years of bartending that I had early in my professional career, it helped a ton to understand and read body language. And so a lot of that really helped on the journey to not only feel comfortable, be safe. And because Nikki and I were security is always the first thing we think about when we're traveling. Mm-hmm. So those things the street savviness to make sure that we're both in a good spot is important. But then also the ability to get somebody to smile on a bus because it just breaks the tension. And you never know if they could say like, where are you guys from? And then that could lead to something that can lead to an invite to a dinner because we had those situations where we'd meet somebody and then we'd interact, have a great time. And they would say, you got to come over because my mom's cooking dinner, or the family's getting together. We would love for you guys to come back and enjoy it. So we had those situations. And I think that's kind of that sales profession openness and those conversations that can lead to there. So for sure, it definitely helps.
And I think an important thing to point out to people who don't travel as much is it sounds so weird, to say, a conversation on the bus led to dinner at someone's house. That's a lot more common, in other places around the world to be just a lot more open and friendly to people than we are in the United States. Obviously, you're not going to follow somebody home in the United States generally from the bus, but it is a lot more common and more acceptable, other places.
Absolutely. And obviously we stuck out a little bit. I'm 6'6", so we always kind of stuck out, and I look like an American. There's no. I either look American or Canadian, maybe Australian. I got one time they thought I was Russian, but that was in a town called Nhan Trong, Vietnam, where they get a ton of Russian travelers. So they thought I was Russian there. But outside of that, I look very American. So yeah, we would stick out. So we'd get those unique conversations. But for the most part, you're absolutely right, where people aren't as guarded as they might be in the U.S.
Right. Yeah. So I want to be able to let you talk a little bit about your podcast, but I want to kind of touch on something that you spoke about earlier and about, not valuing, I guess, the monetary side of things and kind of just being a little bit more free, staying in the condo that you're in. You mentioned in a podcast that you had recently, and that I think just kind of really struck a chord with me, where you talked about how it doesn't really make sense just to save all your money for, when you retire and are 65, 70 years old, that's kind of the worst time to travel, because you may not be able to do all the things that you would have been able to do if you just spent some of that money when you were younger. So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a unique balance, because we're our most valuable like we have our highest earning potential typically in our late 30s, early 40s, and into our 50s. But those are also the best active years that we have physically, if you're lucky to be in decent shape. And then we saw it. So for us, I knew. So I was 40 years old when we left. And I knew that this had been a dream of ours for several years, and it was something it was an actual goal of ours. We wrote it down, and it was a goal. And so when all the stars aligned and it became a reality that we could do it, we continued to make some excuses why we couldn't do it, because it was such a big thing. It was a huge leap of faith. And Nikki and I were both at our top earning that we had been in our corporations. We were deep in our companies. I was 9 years into mine. Nikki was many years into hers. And we were just cruising, and life was pretty easy and not a lot of difficulties. And so we were going to take this huge thing that was going to make life hard. Yes, traveling the world is an amazing opportunity, but it's not always easy. And we knew that going in, but we also knew, I knew that at the time, like, if I didn't do it then, we would likely not ever do it, or we would attempt to do it after we retired or something. So that's why I was so urgent about making it happen, because I knew that we'd enjoy it the most in these years because we had our physical health. And like I said, I'm 6'6", but I've had a major back surgery. So I knew that getting on and off tight squeeze airplanes, because we were going all coach class. We had a ton of bus rides, trains, tuk-tuks, buses, like everything, every type of transportation you can imagine that is not built for anybody over 6 foot anywhere else in the world. I knew that was going to be an issue, and then all the different types of beds we had to sleep in. But I knew that at this point I had got myself to a good place physically, that this would be okay. And that's what the problem was, is as we traveled, we would see other travelers that were in their 60s at times. And you'd see the struggle that they were having, because they were trying to do similar things of the younger travelers, and they couldn't do it because that's how life is. Your body breaks down on you. And that's why I'm just like, it's tough, because it's an easy thing to say if you have the money to do it. And again, as a caveat, your listeners are probably wondering, we do not have children. So that's another thing. But we saw a lot of travelers that do have children, but that's not our case. But my point is more so of the excuses people make on why they can't do what we did, is because a lot of times they're spending their money on the wrong things. Instead of, if traveling is truly a priority, and I promise you, if you've never taken that first international trip, that's what happened to me. I took my first international trip and I was done. I needed more of it. And so if you make that first leap of faith and you make that first international trip, you're going to find ways to cut back financially on the stuff that you don't need, to put that money in a travel fund so you can take that big trip. And that's what we did. And once you do that and you see what the world has to offer, you're going to make those sacrifices, or you're going to try to make more money. Because that was, like I said, I was a commission guy. So I would work my tail off to make that money, so then we could put it towards the travel fund to go experience other places around the world. Not just this trip, but the other trips before, leading up to this, places like Brazil and Argentina and Panama, the country, and Croatia and Greece. Because those are the places that, just as I was visiting those places, I would leave thinking, God, I got to go do more of this. And so that led up to the big trip that we took. And that still, all that leads into the hunger that I have to see more of the world. Because once you get out there and see more of, like, outside of the four walls that that we're in America, you're going to see that there's so much out there, so many things to learn, and just how other people live, how refreshing it can be. But then also when you come home, you're going to see how lucky we are in this country just to have the things that we have here.
I completely agree. Travel really puts, I think, our life in perspective. And the travel
Absolutely.
bug is a real thing for sure. Where was your first international trip?
Istanbul, Turkey.
Oh, very cool.
So I grew up in a military family. So I've lived in 10 U.S. states.
Oh, wow.
and then I played Division I basketball. So I played a bunch around the country, but I never had like Europe or Asia or anything like that until my mid-30s, and it was Istanbul, Turkey, and it was crazy.
That's really cool. I don't think Turkey is necessarily generally a first trip either. So I like to hear that. My first international trip was to Iceland, which generally is not a first either, but I really enjoyed it. My big thing is also trying to find really good flight deals. That just gets me giddy to be able to find flight deals. So I always like to see how cheap I can go. I went to Iceland round trip for $199.
Wow. Was that WOW Airlines?
It was WOW. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
They actually,
they're no longer.
They're no longer,
right?
They're no longer around. I got back 2 days from Ireland. I flew WOW. I flew with them for several years, but yeah, they closed down 2 days after I got back from Ireland, and they just left people stranded. So I got really lucky. So yeah. So
that was a hell of a deal. I've never been to Iceland.
I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It's not as cheap to get to anymore, and it's definitely not cheap while you're there at all. It's
that's what I've heard.
Like Switzerland level, but it's literally like nothing else in the world. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Awesome.
So you, I mentioned, the whole thing about, not just saving your money and how you spoke about that in your podcast. So if you would, please do plug your podcast by all means.
Yeah. It's a Passport Joy Travel Talk. The Passport Joy that's our website, passportjoy.com. Mm-hmm. But then the Passport Joy Travel Talk is, we're up over 90 episodes now. And it's essentially, trying to just give travel advice to people that are looking to go to certain locations, because Nikki and I did an episode every week during our journey, starting about a year in, every week from different locations around the world. And we would just talk about these locations, what we liked about it. But we'd also talk about some of the things like I talked about there, trusted house sitters, workaways, the ways that we saved money and some of the advice there. So that's what all we're trying to do is just give back to the travel community on how you can save money, reasons why you should take these epic trips. And just now that we're back in the States, just other stuff that we're either going through or travel stuff that we see pop up, and ideas to just really just encourage people to see the world. Just to go back to that first travel bug thing, my brother is a great example. He had never been overseas or anywhere exotic. And we were towards the end of the journey, and he was saying, Matt, I got to come see you, dude. I got to come see you. So we ended up meeting in Da Nang, Vietnam for 9 days. And that was his first big trip like that. He had the time of his life. And by the time that he left, we were already planning our next trip. And then my brother and I, this February before this chaos hit, we were in the Philippines for 2 weeks on me and him on a guy's trip. We got scuba certified. We took scooters all over the island. We had a blast. But that's just the thing is, like, once you have your eyes open just a little bit, it's such an experience that you're going to want to continue to do it. And it just fuels you it's that fuel you need to go through some of the grinds we got on our daily jobs. You know what I mean? But it's inspiring, it's fun, and some of the relationships can last a lifetime on those journeys.
100% agree. I don't know whether Vietnam is generally the first place that people should go. That's definitely a cultural shock, but yeah.
Yeah. Luckily he had me there to kind of ease him into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, another thing that I know you had going, and that's really, really interesting to watch is that the World Barbershop Adventures. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's so essentially we were about a year and a half in, and I was always going to the barbershop to get a haircut or get my beard trim. And I had a conversation with a barber in Bucharest, Romania, and it turned into the idea to start videoing my experiences in these barbershops. So we've got over 25 different locations around the world. And like you said, it's on Amazon Prime. There's 3 seasons on Amazon Prime. 17 episodes there, but I also have the YouTube channel that has a lot of content on there. But yeah, it's essentially me in barber chairs around the world, with also an aspect of the culture that we're taking in as well, whether it's sumo wrestling in Tokyo, Muay Thai fighting in Thailand, the rugby in Australia. I give a little highlight of some of the different cool stuff that we're doing in those locations. It's very guy friendly, but if you like culture and seeing different stuff, it's a great look into the different things we were going through.
Yeah, I think those videos are really, really interesting to watch because, like you said, it's not just about the barbershop, which is plenty entertaining to watch. It does mix in that culture too. Now, me, I don't think I'm vain by any means, but I don't know whether I could handle some of the things that you put yourself through with those barbershops.
Yeah.
Obviously you had to get your hair cut given that you were gone for so long, but I'd be interested to hear some of your, some of the craziest experiences you had.
Yeah. And when the barber chair, for sure, when we'd had a 23-hour layover in Doha, Qatar.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to us going through there, I set up a tour guide because I knew we were going to land. I knew we had a cool lobby there so we could take a shower afterwards. And I just wanted to be able to get out of the airport and see some of the city. So we lined this guy up. And during the process, I said, man, I want to get my hair cut and get out a little bit. So he took us to this awesome little ethnic area where there's both Turkish, Indian, and different like Middle Eastern barbers there, because Doha has a lot of foreigners that do a lot of the work in that country. They're considered foreigners, but they might live there for 20 years, but they're still considered foreigners. But so he took me to this awesome little area, and that barber there, he ended up putting fire. They light a little fire stick, and they use the fire on your ear to take those little hairs off your ear. Uh-huh. So that was pretty wacky. I spent like 2 hours in the chair in Tokyo because it was a high-end shop, but they're really into like head massage. Like it's like very much the Asian culture where massage is big, and they spend a lot of time massaging my head. It's at some point it's great, but then it gets beyond that where it's almost it's a lot. 2 hours in the chair is a lot of time. But so things like that. Then like the guys in Vietnam, they played loud hip hop music the whole time. It was almost like a club atmosphere in that barbershop. So yeah, so many different cool experiences. And the cool thing about social media, the way it is now, you get to continue to engage with these people that you meet along the road. So that's the coolest thing. You befriend them, and then you every 2 months or so, you send each other a quick note, and you get to kind of stay in their life as like a distant friend. So it's pretty awesome that way. That
is cool. So you have stayed in contact with some of those barbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really cool. Yeah. I guess the elephant in the room, and you mentioned being in Lisbon. That's actually where I was when, this big COVID thing happened. Yeah. I was in Barcelona. I was leaving to go back to Lisbon the very next day when the whole European travel ban happened. So it was quite scary. I didn't know whether I was going to get back or not. There was all kinds of misinformation, all that. So that's kind of kept me grounded a little bit now. Obviously, we can't travel a ton right now, but I do wonder, how you think COVID's going to affect travel in the future, whether you think it's, temporary changes, whether you think it's going to be things that are permanent, and just your thoughts there when it comes to travel.
I think it's going to be two different layers. So I think that this time of sitting around the house and the health scares and people getting to understand like what's really valuable in life, I think people are going to want to go see the world. I think they're going to want to go travel and take in new experiences, because I think that as people understand that everything that we're going through currently, that they're going to put more of an emphasis or an importance on family and experiences. So I think that will push travel, and kind of the idea that everybody's been kind of locked down for so long too, is it's going to be, everybody's gonna be excited to go somewhere. But after that cycle comes and goes, and then there's a little bit of normalcy. Unfortunately, I think that we're in for a tough run economically around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And what will happen there is you're going to see prices come down. And I think traveling to some of these, I've been looking at places to go travel, and it is unbelievable how cheap things are right now. Just kind of like, Nikki and I will just go and we'll just look at some dream locations, knowing that we can't go anywhere, but you just kind of look things up. And because the demand is so low, there's just an excess of supply and the prices are crazy low. And so I think that might happen if there's an economic struggle and those people that have saved to travel and can travel, there's going to be some great opportunities out there. Because I think that a lot of, whether they're Airbnbs or hotels or however you like to travel, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for some great deals. And I think that the airlines as well, they're going to be competing like crazy to both either stay afloat or just trying to get bodies in seats for a very long time. So I think there's going to be some great price wars that are going to benefit travelers. And then hopefully, as we come through all this, the world as a whole is maybe just like an inviting, because I think that through life, this happens to everybody, but it also happens to like civilizations, is the idea that we just get fat and happy and comfortable, and we take things for granted. And so places like, and I'm not saying these places are bad, but at all, these places are amazing. But like a place like Bali, Indonesia, where it was getting crazy, it was getting really crowded on the island, and it was really busy. A place like that has now been essentially dead for 5 months, they probably can't wait to see tourists.
Oh, for sure.
So the next time they do see people, they're probably going to treat them different than they did a year ago. And so I think that you're going to see a lot. Hopefully it's going to be, the whole world is going to be inviting, and even on a different level. Because like you said earlier, it's amazing to travel because things that would never happen in America happen on the road, as far as the inviting and the warmness and some unique situations where you might not make eye contact on a bus in America, but on another country, because we stick out, they might open up and talk to us. And so that always happens, but I think this next wave is going to be even more inviting to travelers. And so I'm very optimistic when this thing opens up that it's going to be really travel friendly, and hopefully people will be taking advantage of it. But will it be like everybody's wearing masks and all of that? It's hard to tell. It's probably going to be country by country, what kind of rules those are. And
Right.
and we all kind of, people, our memories are so short anyway. So it's like once we get through things, we always forget it rather quickly anymore, and we just kind of move on. So you might have some of that too, where this just becomes a thing of the past, and normalcy hits in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I tend to be optimistic too. I do agree, and I hope that's the case. I also really agree with you that some of these places that have been so overrun by tourists for so long that I don't want to say that that they are almost mad at tourists or annoyed by them. Some people are,
Yeah.
but I think that just to see just how much some places relied on tourism, and they're just going to be happy to have people back for sure. And I also really think that you're going to be able to find good travel deals. Obviously, you got to wait until you're comfortable, but those who are comfortable earlier are the ones that are going to really find some crazy deals. Because I'm like you, I've looked and I've thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe how cheap this is. Even in traveling inside the United States too, there's some deals. I'm not really sure how they're even paying for gas.
Oh, I know it. I absolutely know it. And the other thing that people don't really talk about often, or at least I don't know if they talk about it publicly, is the power of the Chinese traveler,
Mm-hmm.
and the money they have. So you've got a country of 1.5 billion people, and they travel a lot, and they travel in large groups. So if my fear is because the Chinese traveler really holds up a lot of the hospitality ecosystem. If the Chinese traveler doesn't feel welcome around the world, then that can really buckle a lot of the hospitality and tourism around the world. And so I'm kind of not anxious to see how that goes out, but because Nikki and I, we see it everywhere we go is bus loads of Chinese travelers, because that's how they typically would travel. And they would go to sites in groups of 30 and 40. And if you take all those bus loads and all those people out of the mix, I don't think tourism can rebound the way that it wants to. And it is going to be changed, because you brought up a great point. Like, we were in Dubrovnik, Croatia, and they'd had this massive explosion because of Game of Thrones. And we were in the Uber there, the Uber driver was bitching to us like about the growth and how the city has changed and how this is horrible. And the increase has been just brutal for all the citizens there. And that's the thing, like, now they're going to say, like, okay, like, you haven't had people there for 6 months. Do you like the way it is now? Or do you guys want that money coming in? Because people from all over the world were going to Dubrovnik. It's a gorgeous town and city, but you can see how they would get mad about it. But at the same time, it's nice having that revenue. So yeah, it's going to be wild times, man. It's because there's going to be a lot of competition between all these destinations that need travelers coming in. And it's, you take a year off from travel, and some of these cities are not going to make it.
No, that's for sure. I think, those who already are itching to get back out there, I hope that they can do it soon, because there are a lot of places, just like you said, that are really hurting. And I think that if we can put our dollars behind some of those places, that's really what's going to bring back the world for sure.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get back out there, brother.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I've really appreciated your time. I'm so glad that you decided to join us and share. I would be interested if there's anything that you don't think that we've covered that you'd like to kind of to talk about. But otherwise, you've really been awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I would just if traveling is part of your dreams, just understand that you can do it. The big trip that we took at one point seemed impossible for us, but when you sniff around, you do some research, you figure out that other people have done it before you. It's all possible. And then for those that might be listening that have never taken that big trip, if you take it, it will change your life in a positive way. So I really encourage that. And whenever you're in another country, be in that country. Don't bring your Americanisms or wherever you're listening to this with you. Be a part of that culture, and don't think that they should operate like you want it to operate. It's going to operate the way that they operate. And that's the coolness about traveling, is seeing how other people operate around the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of see where you're at through your own eyes. Don't see it through the lens of your camera. There's so many people that all they're doing is taking pictures, and they're not even really experiencing anything that they're doing. So I think that's huge. As much as you're comfortable, and some people aren't comfortable with complete immersion, and that's fine. But as much as you're comfortable, immerse, bring yourself into the situation and really experience where you are. So you talked about Vietnam, and that was where your brother first got the travel bug. But is there any countries you would recommend people to kind of, start their travels? Because I don't know that Southeast Asia is. If it is, please let me know.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you named if for the people that that close to me that's maybe have never traveled to Europe or internationally, Lisbon, Portugal is always my recommendation, because it is just a quaint city that's romantic and gorgeous and a ton of fun. The people are inviting and nice, and the food's good. Like, everything you get in Portugal, in Lisbon in particular, is everything that I love in travel. And it's not that big of a stretch from the United States, but you still, you're in a foreign location, because obviously they're speaking Portuguese, and but there'll be enough people that can speak English with you, for sure. But it's it's everything with the cobblestone roads and the cable cars. You know what I mean? It's one of those places that it'll grab you. And then if you have a chance to go over to Madrid after that, or Barcelona, like you said, those are great places to really get the bug that you'll want to go see other cities, whether they're in Europe or adventure out. Because Portugal, we were actually supposed to be in Lisbon in June again this year, because we've been in Lisbon 2 Junes in the last 3 years, because in June they have all these different festivals with St. Anthony's Day and Portugal Day, and it is just a blast. We were lucky enough to see Portugal play Spain in the World Cup.
Oh wow!
when Ronaldo scored 3 goals, and it was bananas. We think that sports are big in America, and then it's like you go to Europe during the World Cup and you have no idea what fandom truly is, because it's just bonkers. And I love Portugal. I mean, Nikki and I've got some close friends there that now live there, and it's an amazing country, and they're grabbing a lot of expats too that are traveling and moving there. So it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, I highly recommend catching a football game, soccer game in Europe. It's definitely like nothing you've ever seen. This is a story for another time, but actually one of my minors in sociology, and actually took a whole class just on the sociological aspects of European soccer, just because it's such a crazy thing for sure. It's a culture all in its own for sure. Portugal, I agree, is amazing. I would say, it definitely takes someone, unless you want to take a car on those small little roads, it takes somebody who's fit, because there definitely is hills upon hills upon hills.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of walking for sure. And that's to me, that was the thing that I missed most about travel, is I would get a chance to just walk these towns, because if you're not inside a car, you're just walking the streets, then you get all your senses, and then you might pass somebody and have a short conversation with them. That, to me, that's the coolest part about travel. That's the thing I miss the most.
Yeah, I love just walking around. I try to stay out of a car as much as possible, because you're literally just zooming by some really cool experiences. So I miss travel too, just because that was exercise. There was days I'd walk 10, 15 miles. I struggle to do that sitting here in Indianapolis, Indiana.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Very good. Again, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. I think you really helped. I think hopefully you've helped somebody gain that urge to travel and actually take the steps that it takes just to make that first step. Because I do think, the hardest part is just booking that ticket. A lot of times I worry, oh my gosh, I don't know whether I should do this right now. Then you book it and you're like, well, it's happening now. So let's just get excited.
Yeah. No, I know it. That anxiety when you press go, it's a big deal. But then the build up before the trip is so much fun. Just all the dreaming that goes into it. It makes every day so much better. Just thinking about that big trip. It's a lot of fun. So absolutely.
For sure. Thank you again, Matt.
And that was our interview with Matt Javit. I can't thank him enough for joining us on our inaugural podcast. I can't thank you enough for joining us. You made it through the whole thing. You should deserve, I don't know, a sticker, a button, a medal, something. I can't thank you enough that you're here. Thanks again to Matt. I hope you learn a lot about travel, that it's possible for everyone. Obviously, not everyone can do exactly what Matt did. And by that, I mean not everyone can go around and get their hair cut by everyone. I know I couldn't do that. But of course, I also mean they couldn't just take off and travel like that. But even if you incorporate a little bit of that into just your week-long vacation, I highly recommend going out, experiencing the culture. But until next time, we will absolutely be interviewing a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. So join me next time. Again, thank you for being here. And Chris, take us out.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time, where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or, hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.